Hello, I'm Oscar Young and welcome to another video here at Baldwin's Auctions. Now today's video is looking at a monumental event in British philatelic history, and it's not the introduction of the penny black as you might be thinking. This actually happened in 1924, 100 years ago. Now, when you think of Great Britain, we were the creator of the stamps. We're the only country in the world that doesn't print our name on stamps because it's the privilege afforded to us for being the inventor of the stamps and, of course, the eventual creation of the world's greatest hobby. Now, in 1924, it was 10 years after the Great War. Britain was in a slight bit of depression. The whole world was as well, recovering from the horrors of the Great War. And as an injection of patriotic oomph to the great British public, an exhibition was held in Wembley, and it was known as the Great British Empire Exhibition. The Great British Empire Exhibition was a major celebration across the country, with the main epicenter at Wembley, where a great stadium was erected. And of course, there were various pavilions and halls of industry and exhibition spaces exhibiting all the various aspects of the empire, from architecture, culture, history, values, and it was also representing all that was great about the British Empire, of course in a contemporary political context. Such was the interest in the British Empire exhibition that the organisers, and indeed the Post Office, thought that a philatelic promotion might be warranted to commemorate such a major national event. In 1923, a committee was formed with the postal officials, members from the arts and philatelic world, were all joined together to come up with an idea for some form of philatelic promotion. No philatelic promotion had ever been done officially before, the only comparable examples being the 1890 anniversary of penny postage printed envelopes that were prepared, and the 1897 Prince of Wales Hospital Trust labels that were produced to mark Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee. So when the committee was formed, they decided early on that an issue of stamps seemed the appropriate thing to do, and artists were invited to submit designs. 8 artists were invited to submit designs, and by February 1924, all artists had submitted their designs and they were put forward to the committee for consideration and approval. 2 of the major artists were Harold Nelson, who was a repeat offender in the Post Office. He had recently designed the Seahorse High Value Definitives, which had come out in 1913. The second artist of note being Eric Gill, who was a relative newcomer to the world of art and design, but was quickly rising through the ranks and would later go on to submit designs for Edward VIII stamps. Now, the Post Office considered these designs. They looked at the various features. The animal emblem of the British Empire Exhibition was, of course, the British Lion, and that was key part of the design. So this is the issued design, designed by Harold Nelson, which features the roaring lion, the king's head in an oval of laurel leaves with the crown on top, the British Empire Exhibition there, very proudly in bold. And as you can see in the back of the design, there is a sunset. And of course, the British Empire's motto, or a very poetic motto, was the empire upon which the sun never sets. This was once described to me from a collector as being Jerusalem on a stamp. You've got the clouded hills and this falling sunset. It's a really evocative and very attractive design. This was immediately approved by the king. Eric Gill's design, however, was not seen so favourably. In fact, the king was said that he could hardly approve of it at all. He did not find it attractive, whatever anyone tried to say to him. But the king was not that artistic, and such a design like this was a much safer bet. And the king approved the design for both the penny and the one in halfpenny, both being the same design but in different colours. So the penny was printed in scarlet and the one in halfpenny printed in brown. Of course, the exhibition opened on the 23rd of April 1924, St George's Day. The king opened the exhibition with a great speech and to great acclaim, and took many a tour around the British Empire Exhibition during his many visits there. In fact, at some of the great pavilions, you could see brand new steam locomotives that have been made in the Hall of Industry. And if you went along to the Canadian Pavilion, you could see a model of the Prince of Wales, the later Edward VIII, modelled in butter and kept in a refrigerated box so that it wouldn't melt. But of course, the main highlight for all stamp collectors was the exhibition post office, where you could buy these stamps, and if you were very lucky, you could even make up your own little first day cover with the Empire Exhibition postmark and send them to yourself. And these are quite scarce. You don't see many of them around. And some are illustrated, but most of them are plain covers like this. And as you can see, we've got the Wembley Exhibition postmark of the lion on there, and both values used on first day, the 23rd of April being St. George's Day. These stamps, being Britain's first commemorative stamps, are not actually that scarce. There are little varieties that you will find on these, which are all listed in our concise catalogue, but 17 million were printed of this particular design. But of course, this one does have a slightly scarcer cousin. Because the exhibition went on for 10 months, they later reissued the same stamps with an amended date, so that most that you'll see will say 1924, but others will say 1925. And of course, the 1924 examples are far more numerous than the 1925 examples. Now, 17 million were printed, and I've got them in my notes here, but 13,241,491 of the 1924 stamps were sold during the course of the exhibition, whereas only 3,545,128 of the 1925 issue were sold by the end of the exhibition on the 31st of October 1925. And of course, I don't have an example on cover of the 1925 to show you because they are infinitely scarcer than the 1924 examples. So, being Britain's first commemorative stamps, what are they worth? Well, they're not necessarily that scarce. As we said, 17 million of both types were printed and issued over the course of 10 months. And they saw quite a long period of usage. And they are really the genesis of all Great Britain commemorative stamps, and that have influenced every issue ever since, right up to the present day. And you have to think how far departed many of the modern Royal Mail issues are from these when you consider that Star Wars, Star Trek and Harry Potter have all been issued on British stamps after this one. And within 100 years of British commemorative stamps now, you have to think this is where it all started. Now, how much are these worth? In the concise catalogue at the moment, a mint set, unmounted mint set of the 1924 is about £30, used quite less. In the 1925 set is worth £80 mint, unmounted and used. Again, not as much. Mint is far more desirable for these, but used on first day, they're worth some hundreds. And in fact, this one is catalogued at £450, which makes an enormous difference. And there you have it, Britain's first commemorative stamp to mark a major national event which lasted for 10 months, saw millions of visitors in its time, and over 17 million of these were printed and have a fairly high survival rate. And you have to think how far British commemorative stamps have come from very humble and conservative beginnings. I'm rather fond of this design. It's a great issue. Whilst it may not necessarily hold as much value as other issues, it really does paint a picture of British philatelic history. And as always, please like and subscribe for more Baldwin's content. As you can see, I've had a bit of a wardrobe change, and mainly because to tell you about our Gibbons Stamp Monthly magazine, and in the subsequent issues that will be coming out soon, we will be talking about the Road to Wembley series, talking about the early medieval markets that occupied the area, which now occupies the very famous ruins of Crystal Palace. Part 2 will be looking into the associated postal history and memorabilia surrounding the Great Exhibition of 1851, the precursor to the British Empire Exhibition. Part 3 looks at the permanent exhibition spaces that sprung up in London and around the country, inspired by the Great Exhibition of 1851, such as the South Kensington Exhibition, Franco-British Empire Exhibition, etc., etc. And then lastly, in Part 4, we will be looking at the British Empire itself. We'll be looking at the associated postal history, which we talked about earlier, those first day covers that we saw, and other memorabilia. And some of the memorabilia I've got in front of me here from our own Standard Gibbons archive. This is a tea caddy from Lipton's Tea, a company who are still going today. This is a little condiment pot, which we seem to think must have had mustard or maybe preserves such as jam or marmalade put inside. And then this one here, which is my little personal favorite, is a little salt and pepper pot. Unfortunately, I can't find the other one, but I think this must have been salt because of the various amount of holes in there. All these wonderful things you could buy along with the stamps at the British Empire exhibition in 1924.